All right, welcome everyone. Great to see your names, if not your faces. We are here today to talk about SEL and Culture and Climate Spring Survey Administration. If you haven't already, if you could add your school name to your Zoom name, that would be super helpful. And we'll just get started here with some introductions before we jump in. My name is Gabby. I know many of you through our partnership between your schools and New Schools. I'm a senior associate partner here on the Innovative Schools team at New Schools. And so in this work, I sort of take care of anything that's school facing and related to your grant requirements or our goals around participation, which you'll hear more about shortly, anything on the New School side of things. I will pass it off now quickly for Justin and Holly to introduce themselves.
Hi folks, my name is Holly and I'm one of the customer success managers here at Kelvin. And so my role really is to support you throughout the survey process, help you with any of your system issues that you may be having as you're running the survey and get you up to speed. And really we're here throughout the whole process for you. So we want you to know that you can reach us at any time throughout the process while you're doing your surveys. And we're going to do our best to make sure you're feeling confident about collecting your survey data. Justin, I'll pass it to you.
And my name is Justin, and I'm also a customer success manager with Kelvin Education. And so I will also be providing support, not only just on this webinar, but throughout the process as you may or may not see our names as we're kind of pestering you with emails and that sort of thing. So that's us. And we'll continue to help and you guys can schedule meetings and we'll talk more about that. And then we will have a Q&A. You can either drop your question in the chat. We'll be monitoring both or the Q&A format either way. And I saw that there was a question in there about the naming. I'll make sure that that we enable that so that you can identify your name. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Justin and Holly. So today, I'll give a bit of an intro, but you'll spend the bulk of the time hearing from Justin and Holly about details of the surveys, some administration tips. We learned a lot from the fall about tips and tricks to help make administration go smoothly. So they'll talk through setting your survey windows, tactics for ensuring high participation, and then some next steps from here. And as Justin mentioned, we'll have time for questions as well. Ultimately, though, we want to reground in why we're actually here, which is because of our shared commitment to an expanded definition of student success. You all are doing the work at your schools of prioritizing both academics and the habits and mindsets and skills that students need to achieve their aspirations, whatever those may be. And we know you as well share this deep commitment to elevating student voice, to gathering data, not just around academics, but around SEL and school culture and climate as well. So we're excited to support you in gathering this data throughout the spring and are looking forward to a successful survey administration. Right now, we are here really actually just after where that arrow is pointing in February, but you can see the journey we've been on together this year. So you all administered surveys for the first time via Kelvin this fall. We had data debriefs, opportunities for you all to get support in making sense of that data. And then we really spent December and January gathering your feedback and planning for improvements to the survey process for the spring. We know there were ups and downs from the survey administration in the fall, and we got some great insights from all of you that we'll carry forward this spring. And to put a finer point on that, I'll talk through some of the things that we heard from you. So we heard that you wanted a longer survey window. We know there are tons of competing priorities and challenges that students were absent with COVID. And so this spring, we've moved to a 5-week survey window versus the 3 we had in the fall. We know spring includes state testing, spring break. So we're hopeful that this longer window will give you the flexibility you need to have high participation and complete the surveys at a time that works best for you. We heard in the fall that you all experienced some technical challenges, specifically rostering was challenging when it came to syncing with Clever, and then some issues with the Chrome extension. As far as rostering goes, if you were successful with Clever in the fall, you're all set. No action needed for the spring. If you used a different method of rostering, the Kelvin team probably has already reached out to you to get you set up. And if you are uncertain of where you're at with that, feel free to reach out to the Kelvin team. And then with the Chrome extension, the Kelvin team identified some of the underlying issues with the challenges there. So we shouldn't see those same issues this spring. If you have questions or concerns and want to talk through that, again, please reach out to the Kelvin team. One piece of feedback we heard in the fall was at times a lack of clarity about when the surveys would be pushed to students. So seeing the dog pop up at unexpected times, staff being unclear on when the surveys were launching. And so for that reason, we're going to spend a chunk of time today about actions you can take now to make sure the surveys launch at the exact day and time that you want them to, which will set you up to share with staff what they can expect and have a process that feels predictable and aligned with what you're hoping for. And then finally, we heard positive feedback around the Kelvin dashboards and around readiness to take that data and take action on it. So we're excited to hear that, and we've been partnering with the Kelvin team to build out even more advanced dashboards. You'll get a little bit more info on that. You'll be able to see portfolio-wide benchmarks now built into those reports, which is really exciting. So those are some of the learnings from the fall. And soon, in the next month or so, we'll be moving into the second survey administration. The window extends, as you likely know, from March 21st to April 22nd. As a reminder, there are two distinct student surveys specifically required for students in grades 4 through 12. There's the SEL survey, where students are reflecting on their own perceptions of their own SEL competencies, and then the culture and climate survey, where students reflect on the school. We do recommend having two distinct windows for these two surveys. We did hear in the fall sometimes like students thought they completed the survey, but the dog is popping up again, and it turned out that was for the second survey. So the Kelvin team can share more about strategies there. And then we have the staff culture and climate survey as well. Across all of these surveys, we have a participation goal of 80%, and you'll see us as we update you on response rates referring to this goal. And this is not only because we want meaningful data at the portfolio level, but we know that you're going through a whole process and a lot of steps to launch these surveys, and we want you to have meaningful, reliable, and generalizable data as a result of all of that work that you're putting in. So that's our target, and we're happy to work with you in an ongoing way to troubleshoot as you work towards that goal. With that, I'm going to pass things off to Holly and Justin.
Thank you for that, Gabby. I appreciate that introduction. So we just wanted to reinforce what Gabby has already told you about the survey administration window running from March 21st through April 22nd. And at this point of the webinar, we want to demonstrate for you how to set those time windows for the survey, setting specific dates for your student surveys within that March 21st to April 22nd window, how to access the survey if the pop-up is snoozed, how to monitor your participation throughout data collection, and then lastly, we'll share a little bit about that new report feature, the benchmark that Gabby mentioned. So first, we wanted to focus on two of the main adjustments that you'll be able to make for your surveys. And we wanted to show you the time that Boogie, the little dog, pops up. And you can see from our screenshot down here, there's a daily window with some times, and that's where you can make those adjustments to set the time that you want the dog to pop up. And then the second screenshot here, we're showing you how you can adjust those dates. And we're going to go to the live site as well to show you how to do that. But we wanted to provide you some screenshots so you know what to be looking for as we get into the system. And we wanted to point out that within these windows, you can set a window to only allow responses during certain times of the day. So for example, if you want your students to complete surveys in their homeroom, or you have a time that they rotate to ELA or a math class and you want it to administer them then, you could set it for those times. We recognize that you know your sites best, and we want to empower you to make those optimal windows for your participation to be maximal. We do recommend setting distinct windows, as Gabby mentioned, between the student SEL survey and the culture and climate survey, because that can become confusing for students as they see that dog continue to pop up if you have any overlap in those days. So on that note, I'm going to have Justin go ahead and drop in the chat the link to our site, to pulse.kelvin.education, and let's go over how you can make those adjustments. And if you are a system administrator, you would have access to do these kind of edits. If not, don't fret. We will send out the webinar recording so you can get this in the hands of the person who does have system admin access, and we'll be able to make those changes. So we have two ways. Once you're logged in to the site, you land here on what we call the launch pad. And so you'll see all these cards on the page, and where you're going to look is under our results page. You'll see different cards that represent different surveys. So for you, if you haven't been running any other surveys through Pulse other than the new school surveys, you may only be seeing the 3 cards, which would be the 2 student surveys and then the staff culture and climate survey. But for this case, you're seeing all of our surveys that we have had running in the past. So we're going to scroll down and find the card that we want to edit the dates for. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. The first way that we will do this, and bear with me as I get to it. Here it is. I'm going to click on my social emotional learning survey, and you'll notice that it takes us automatically to a summary page. That's this blue skittle up here at the top. And that would show me any results that we had from the previous time the survey was administered. But where we want to go to make any edits to the upcoming survey is to click this yellow skittle at the top called Latest Activity. Now from here, you'll see a What's Next box, and it tells us we'll be asking 9 questions between March 21st and April 1st. If I were to just click on this change link that's right here, it would allow me to change the dates. However, we want to look at both the dates and the time window that Boogie pops up. So I'm going to cancel and show you how to get to that page. Just below the next dates, you'll see View Schedule. So if you click on this View Schedule link, it should take you to this calendar, which shows you when the survey will be administered. So we see the dots represent when it will start. And as you scroll down, now you see that daily window that had pointed out earlier in our screenshot. And the default is to be set between midnight and 11:59 p.m. But again, let's just say you only want it to pop up during a particular class. So I can come in and make that edit from here and select the times that I want. Let's just say we want to have it open between 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And we're going to click the green update button to make sure it saves that. It's now updated the times that Boogie will pop up. And then now I see for the dates, March 21st to April 1st, I can come and change those dates if I wanted to. So you would click on those 3 dots and you would see edit dates. So select edit dates. And now I can choose to reduce the amount of time or extend it. Again, keeping in mind that this is just one of the student surveys. So I want to be mindful of when I set those dates, again, that they're not overlapping with the next student survey. So I might just extend it an extra few days to the middle of the week in April. And so all I have to do is select, click and drag, and then save. And now it updates my survey dates to go March 21st to April 6th. So that's one really simple way to get to your dates and edit that time window, but there is a second way that you can do that, and we like to show you both. So as you're coming into the system, that you know a couple of ways to get there. You can see at the very top menu this pulses next to the heart icon. If we click on that, it will take us to our list of all of our pulses, our surveys that we have in here. And I can scroll down and find that same survey, social emotional learning survey. And I can click the 3 dots and click view schedule. And you'll see it will take me exactly to that same page that it did from that first way that we got to view schedule. So you would go through the exact same process. If you wanted to change your times, I can go ahead and update it. I can change it back to my dates if I want it to go back to ending on April 1st. And I can do that there. So one thing I wanted to point out though, is that this daily window that Boogie pops up, the little dog icon, that applies to all dates that you have the survey window open for. So the little dog would pop up between 8 and 11 a.m. from March 21st through April 1st. So every day that it's open, you unfortunately would not be able to adjust it for just certain days like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday during those times. So keep that in mind as you set those, that it will pop up. So now that we've covered how you can make those adjustments, we also want to show you a tip in case your students X out of Boogie. And if you are wondering, what are you talking about, this Boogie? Who is that? So Boogie, in the bottom right corner, you'll see my mouse hovering over, is the little dog. And this is your student's invitation to take the survey. So once that pops up, they should know they have a survey. It already recognizes your student because we're pulling that data from your SIS. And then they would just click that green arrow to begin answering the survey. Now, the reason I mentioned Xing out is there's this little X right here at that top corner. If your student saw that, and sometimes this is the case, if the students were not aware of what Boogie is and they clicked it open and thought, oh no, I wasn't supposed to do that, they might click that X to get out of it. When they click that X, it means Boogie will snooze or take a little nap for the next 3 hours and will not appear again for another 3 hours. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you've set a minimum window, maybe only a 2-hour window throughout the day, then they wouldn't see Boogie pop up until the next day. But not to fear, not to fret if it was an accident that they snoozed it. You can still show them, direct your students how to find the survey by going up to the very top by your URL window, and you'll see your extensions up here, and direct your students to click on this K, this purple K in the white box. Or if you need them to access it outside of the window that you set, or alternately, if you're choosing to have all your students only access it by clicking on that button at the same time at a specified date and time. This is a good way to direct them to get there. So if you click that K, you'll see again that card pops open, just like it did when they clicked on Boogie the dog as he pops up. Another thing to note is if you go to this extension bar up here and the students are not seeing the K, you can direct them to click on the little puzzle piece here and try to find it in the drop-down list of any extensions that were installed. So this is part of why we've been going through and checking with all of your sites to make sure the extension actually is installed and being seen by students. So that's a very important piece for this to work if you're going to use that option. So now that we've covered how to get to there, let's jump back into our presentation. And part of what we talked about, making sure that they have the extension installed, to get that student participation, you really want to make sure that your students are logging in to their Chrome profile. And so I've got a screenshot here, and you'll see that icon from your web browser. We like to point out sometimes students think that they have signed in to a Chrome profile, but really they've just logged into their Gmail account. So those are two different things. And one of the help documents that we have put together for you is settings that your Google admin can put for all of your students to log into Chrome to be forced to sign in. So Justin, I don't know if you have that link ready to drop in the chat. Perfect. So that's one way to ensure that they're going to actually see the survey because it is linked to their Google sign-on. The other thing that we want to point out, the tip for making sure your participation rates are good, is that students hit that green submit button at the end of the survey. So they may have gone through that whole process of answering questions, or maybe they've gone through and skipped. But if they click out that X at the end instead of clicking submit, you've spent this time and not captured their responses. So that is one thing to look out for if you have students in the middle of taking a survey, just to check that they've actually clicked that submit button. Okay, so let's talk about some additional tips that we have for you. We want to make sure that your teachers are clear on when and why the surveys are happening. They'll probably be your best advocates for making sure that your students are completing these surveys if they're aware of when it will happen and why it is so important that you're collecting this information. You also want to ensure your students who need additional supports have them. So read aloud, one-to-one support, and have that in place. Keep in mind that Boogie, the little pop-up on that survey card, there is a microphone, a little microphone icon. So if you have some emergent readers, if they need that question and the responses read aloud, they can click on that button during the survey. You'll want to streamline timing to specific days and times. So again, we were pointing out, making sure that you're very deliberate in when your window will be for your surveys. You'll want to also accommodate for breaks, makeup days for students, and just make sure that you've built that in for that window that you've set ahead of time. You want students to take the surveys in an environment with an adult they're comfortable with. So that might be an advisory class, or maybe you have an ELA teacher or homeroom. We recognize that you know your sites best, and you'll be able to determine what's going to work for your site. Remind your staff the day before and the day of the survey that it will go live. That's just good practice to make sure everybody's aware this is happening, especially with it being a high stakes survey. Also keep in mind that Kelvin will send out reminders, so email reminders, but it's also good for you to keep that communication going with your staff on site. Share participation rates with staff. We're going to cover in just a couple of slides here how to see that. And then compile your list of students and staff who have not completed the surveys. We'll show you also how you can get that data. And then last, plan for a makeup day for students who have missed the surveys. And I do want to point out that that window of dates that you set, you can go in and extend the dates while that survey is still live. But once that last date that you've set of the survey passes and it closes, you will not be able to extend it after that. So be very deliberate ahead of time. If you know it's going to end on April 1st for that first survey that you've sent out, make sure before the 1st that you come in and extend it if you need some extra time. If at any point you're confused about how to do that, please reach out to us and we will help you and make sure that that gets done. But it has to be requested before that date has closed. Otherwise, we cannot reopen it for you. So let's talk about how you can view the live participation once that survey is open and you're collecting data. So you can view it by logging into the system. It's the same link that Justin shared with you earlier, going to the Launchpad, and you would select sign in at the top, log in with your school email, and then you want to find the survey with the live badge. So we're going to jump back over, and I'm going to jump out of editing back to the Launchpad where we would first log in. And we're, for demonstration, just going to pick one of our live pulses. You'll know it's live because of that green live badge. And when a survey is live, it actually will take you to the participation report. So this purple skittle here at the top, and it will show you your participation rate, the percentage, and how many responses you've received out of the number of surveys that were sent out. So we can see we're at a sad 0% participation with 0 responses out of over 1,300 participants here. Now, in your case, you may see a handful of responses coming through. I wouldn't be too worried unless you're getting further into your survey date and you're seeing really, really low response rate. So keep that in mind at the dates and times that you're looking at it, and also keeping in mind what you have communicated to your staff and students about when they'll take those surveys. So now that we're here, we will take a look at our responses. We know we have 0 responses here, but I want to point out the status bar over here, the drop down. If I click on that, I can sort by who has responded and who has not responded. So again, if you have several responses already and you only want to see a report of who has not responded, you could sort it by this selection. Since we have 0 responses, I won't do that report at the moment. System administrators, I want to point out that this top button, the 3 dots within the circle at the top corner, will give you a download option. And you can download a spreadsheet with the list of everyone who has not responded, and it will give you their unique participation link for their survey. So if you had that list and you knew which teachers you needed to give that list to with their links, you could provide that to them to catch up with those who maybe need to make up the survey or have not taken it at that point. One other thing I wanted to point out, is if I click on any individual student that pops up here, so I can see what's going on with Eleanor, it will show me the student's name, their grade, their school, and then this little line here, extension last seen, gives me an extra piece of information about if they have seen the extension. The last time she saw it was January 30th, 2020, so I might surmise that she hasn't logged in for a while to her Chrome browser. So that would be one of those areas where you can troubleshoot and see if that's the reason they are not taking the survey. You'll also see their unique link here, and that's what I mentioned would be generated for you in that spreadsheet that the system admin could download. So you can grab their links here as well. Okay, going back. You can also find that participation page on the staff survey as well. So I just wanted to point out it's the same process. So as you're administering each of your surveys, it's a good page for you to be paying attention to if you are the leader in charge of executing the surveys. We also have a new backup option for the student pulses, and we know that for some of our sites, you are using iPads and you don't have devices that are working nicely with the extension. So we were able to develop a sign-in option for students. So it's essentially the same website that you would navigate to as staff, but when they go to pulse.kelvin.education, they would log in with their Google sign-on, their email, and then the survey would pop up. So this screenshot here shows you just like that card that we saw when we clicked on Boogie, or if we click the K from the extension bar, it pops up just like this. So they'll see essentially the same thing. It's just a different method of getting there. So this is a nice backup option. Also, if you need to do a last push and you see that you have a lot of students who haven't been seeing the extension and taking it, you can send out this one link to go to pulse.kelvin.education and have them sign on. We also have a list of resources for you. Some of you may already have this if you attended the fall onboarding webinar, but for those of you who are new or maybe just joining us and taking on the role of executing the surveys, we wanted to make sure that you had access to these. And so we've included tips for communication, and specific handouts and videos for your teachers and students. There's the letters to families. That's that bottom link here, handout for families, if you have families that need to opt out their students. And then we're also sharing the link to the presentation in the chat. So Justin will be dropping that for you shortly. So you will have all of these links that are on the slides as well from the presentation. Now, for immediate next steps, we want to send you off knowing what you need to do from here. So at this point, we want to make sure that you are going in and adjusting your pulse windows for each of the student surveys and the staff surveys. I wanted to point out also that we have preset dates for you and have split them up. So one of the student surveys will start March 21st and is set until April 1st. And then we have another one starting about a week later, going until April 22nd. Again, I want to stress that we understand you know your sites best. So we preset for you. You can leave it at that if that's what you want. We want you to set the times that work for your sites and communicate that with your staff and your students so that they know what to expect. So on that note, communicating with them, staff and students, if you haven't shared results from the previous survey, it may be a good time to do so. But keep in mind, you should only share that data with staff and students if your response rates were high enough and representative. You probably don't want to share results if only 3 out of 150 students submitted responses. And then the person speaking about the data should be deeply familiar with it. And you don't want to give any identifying information of students or staff out and make anybody's responses feel as though they've been compromised. And then last, we have the Pulse Readiness Checklist. I know Gabby sent this out back in January, so we'll go ahead and review that briefly because you've probably covered many of these steps already. And I know in a lot of our communications with some of you, we're working through those with you. So the first is logging into your Pulse account. If you're a system administrator, especially, we want you to make sure you can do that because you will be the key person who can go in and make those edits to the dates and the window when the Pulse or the survey appears. We want you to please check your data, make sure that your student and staff counts look accurate, because if it's not being pulled through correctly, we want to make sure that that is accurate before the survey begins. Once that survey is open and the data is collected, it will be much more difficult for us to get accurate numbers if it's not corrected beforehand. Extension, we have links here showing you how to check the extension if students and staff are seeing that. And again, as you're going through these, if you're confused at all at any point of what to be looking for or how to do this, you can reach out to us and we're more than happy to meet with you and help you troubleshoot these issues that you may be having with the system. We're on this step with the webinar and we will be sending out the recording once we're done. Make sure you've set your own Pulse dates. So that was probably the top priority at this point. And we also want to make sure you've communicated with your staff and your students. One other thing I wanted to point out in our red font up here is that we have sent out emails requesting additional student demographics, and we'll talk about why that's important in just a second here on our next slide. So if you have received those requests from us and you have any questions, please schedule a time or just shoot us an email. We're happy to work with you. So on that note, since we mentioned talking about results from the last survey, we wanted to point out our new feature, Kelvin. It's this benchmark on the yellow skittle that you would see once you click on any of the surveys that you have already sent out. And when you click on that, you will see, you'll see something like this. So it's similar to the heat map report in how it appears in this table format. And you will see you'd be able to toggle by dimension and question level, and we've kept it at the dimension level. We do support 2 metrics, the percent favorable, so you'll see this where I've hovered over number average. So percent favorable, you'll see in many of our other Kelvin reports. That's our preferred reporting number, but we recognize that number average is very useful for many of our customers as well. So you would need to select the grade level. So keep in mind, because this is set, the survey is for 4th grade and up. If you've brought any younger grades over that were not part of the survey, it might default to a younger grade. And if you don't see data there, that is most likely the cause. So just make sure you go up to the grade level, click on that drop down and select the grade that you want to look at for those data. So if you're using a 5-point Likert scale, like the new schools surveys are, you would see an average, these number averages between 0 and 5. And in the benchmark column all the way to your left, you would see the average scores, excuse me, you would see the scores for all of the sites in the new schools portfolio. And this total column, well, right now we're seeing the same numbers across. This would be your totals for your site and that grade level that you've selected. So you would see different numbers. So I know right now this isn't the best comparison. If you're able to get in your site and you want to kind of click around while I'm talking about it, it will make more sense, I'm sure. And then I wanted to also point out that you'll see at the top the subgroups. And so as we mentioned before, that is part of why we want to help bring over any of your ancillary data, your student demographic data. And the more that you share with us, then the more you'll be able to see by your subgroups of students and have some meaningful information. So one thing I haven't pointed out yet is that we have 5 colors in this report. So you'll see mostly gray, and gray represents scores that are right at the average. Yellow is approaching negative, whereas the orange color, the bolder color, represents a significant negative trend. And then when we see light blue, we're trending negative, so approaching significance, and the bolder, darker blue color is a significant difference from the average. So that said, I hope that you will take some time to go and look through your reports, and depending on what your number, your response rate was previously, may or may not be exciting for you, but hopefully that will encourage you to have your students and your staff to participate so that you can look at these data and be able to make some changes going forward. But I want to open up for questions. That was just our brief overview of that report. We can cover anything and everything at this point. We have some time.
Holly, there's not any immediate questions in the chat, although please keep sending them if you have any questions. Go ahead, post either in the chat or the Q&A. There was a question about how to get the email directly, the survey links for students, and I'll repost that for everyone. But I think you did mention that, how to get that report where you can download that. And then I think those are the big questions. And then maybe if you could just speak to again, we're getting a lot of questions about, what is SPED and what is GATE, because those are 2 categories that, that they may or may not know about in their particular situation. Could you just talk about maybe what are some of those demographic fields that we're asking for?
Yes, so I think SPED may be one that's more familiar for folks. Justin, maybe you meant SED. Was it SED?
Sorry, I meant SED. Yeah, sorry.
Yes. So SED is socioeconomically disadvantaged, and that may vary. The metrics for that may vary by state. And so your state may call it something else, perhaps the free and reduced lunch. I believe from the federal designation, and it probably has changed since the last time I've looked at it. Federal designation had multiple measures that accounted for that, which may have included qualifies for free reduced lunch. Parent education level is not attended college, I believe, so high school level or lower. And I'm probably forgetting some. Justin might be able to help fill me in here. And then the other area was GATE, and not all states have that. That was primarily a program in California. I believe there were a handful of other states that had GATE program. It's a gifted and talented education program. So if that doesn't apply to you, please don't be stressing about getting that to us. As we mentioned before, communicate with us. We're happy to work with you, and we're doing everything we can to bring over as much of your data as you're able to share with us. I did open up this page again on the participation report because I know you had mentioned that where they would find those unique links to send to students. So again, system admins, let me actually go back to that main page so you can follow the steps to get there. So for at the Launchpad and during your survey, it is live. We see the live button here. And if we clicked on that card, it takes us directly to the participation page where you would see who has and has not responded. System admins would see this 3-dot circle up here. I think we call it our hamburger menu. And if you're not a system admin, you probably won't see that button up there. So if you don't see it, you may have a lower level of admin access. Click on that, you'll see the download option. It will download a spreadsheet for you. You'll see a list of names and the unique link that goes for each student or staff member, depending on which survey type you're on. Keep in mind also, if you just real quickly needed to grab a link for one specific student, you could click directly on their name and their card pops up, and then you would see that survey link right here, and you could grab that and share that with them. Did we have any other questions, Justin?
I'm not seeing any other. Oh, I was just gonna, yeah, if you want to mention the office hours, as the questions usually don't happen until they're actually sitting down and actually doing it. So we'll get the questions about 5-10 minutes after the webinar, but we'll be available for that as well.
Absolutely. I'll turn my camera back on now. Yeah, so we have our links included. And so this is in the slide deck that Justin shared the link to you, but we can also drop the links to our emails in the chat. Our drop-in office hours, we will be available this week for group drop-ins. So we'll take multiple people at a time. It's really come in if you'd like. From Thursday 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time, and then Friday 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And it doesn't have to be anything that we covered in this webinar. If there's something specific to your Pulse site that you needed some help with, we can walk you through that. If you had questions about the ancillary data, we can talk through that. We're really open to helping you with whatever it is that you need to make sure you feel confident and competent in delivering the survey coming up next month. So we want to make sure that you can get your questions answered. Now, in the case that those times don't work for you, or you're not able to make it this Thursday or Friday, if you click that drop-in office hours link, there is another link where you could schedule a one-on-one with us. So feel free to book through there as well. So just wanted to let you know you have multiple options, or you can reach out to us at hello@kelvin.education and let us know a time or date that might work with you, and we'll do our best to make that work within your availability. So at this point, I just wanted to turn over to Gabby, because I think she probably has a couple more things she wants to share.
Thanks, Holly. Just a few quick things. Want to encourage you all, if you have someone on your team who's working on this who may not yet be getting communication about this work. We know roles shift and people come in and out. So if you do need us to update our contact information, please keep us in the loop on that so that everyone on your team is getting the information they need. Second, just want to double click on the recommendation to try this out on another survey before our surveys. You can draft up a question or a couple questions. It can be super short, but test out the functionality. Great opportunity to get some additional, info from students on how they're feeling or what they're thinking about. We do, highly recommend that you test this out before these more formal surveys. And finally, just want to echo the importance of the demographic data. We know that it's some work on the front end to get it in there. We did hear in the fall some disappointment from folks who were like, oh man, we really wanted to look at our data, by these subgroups and it's not in there. And we know that sometimes it's distinct people who are looking at that data versus the ones who are doing the work to get it in there. So if you're, a school leader who perhaps is not as in the weeds with getting that in there, we recommend talking to that person and, expressing the importance of getting those demographics in there. If you're someone who, is doing that technical work, but maybe is unclear on which demographics are really important to your school, we recommend talking to, the ED or CEO or principal, whoever it is that's driving that work. So just, a reminder to communicate across your team, since we know folks are sometimes in silos supporting different parts of this project. So thank you all. Holly or Justin, I don't know if you have any closing words, but I'll just end with appreciate you all being here.
Yeah, I just echo that sentiment, Gabby. We appreciate you all taking the time to be here. We know that an hour is a lot out of a school day when you have many other administrative duties to juggle. So we recognize the time you spent with us. We will send out this recording to you once we have it ready to go. So you can keep an eye out for that. And I wanted to, again, just remind you, email us if at all you have any questions or concerns. We're here for you to help you. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.